Welcome to the Theo Therapist podcast, where theologically trained licensed therapists share health and healing conversations. Join our host, Dr. Trice Glenn, for conversations about real-life issues from both theological and therapeutic perspectives.
Hello and welcome to the Theo Therapist podcast. I am your host, Dr. Trice Glenn. This is episode 4 of season 3, and we are so happy that you have joined us today and that you are either listening or watching us on YouTube. And so glad that you are here. You can definitely find out more information about the podcast at thetheotherapist.com or check out my practice website at sixsolacenow.com. And there you'll find more information and links and past episodes. Just a small disclaimer, this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy, and I strongly encourage you, if you don't already have someone that you're working with in professional counseling, that you reach out to someone. Okay, guess who our guest is today? It is one of the brightest spirits that you will ever meet. When I think of her, I think of sunshine. When I got a chance to sit down and meet with her and we had a lovely dinner together, brightness just emanates from her. And so today, my guest is Erika Perez. She is MD LPC-S, and we'll find out more about that. But she is a therapist. She is a minister. She lives at that intersection that I often talk about, which is that theotherapy combination, where you are providing care for others, but you have a theological training and foundation that supports it. A little bit about Erika. She's a dedicated educator and counselor. She has nearly a decade of experience in higher education. In addition to that, she does have a master's of education in counseling and guidance. She's a licensed professional counselor supervisor. She uses that to continue to challenge others and help foster growth in future professionals. And she's the owner of her own practice, Clear Path Counseling Services. And she's been there for over 5 years. So I want to hear more about that. Welcome, Erika. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, well, sunshine back at you, Catrice, because that was the same experience that I had meeting you. No, I'm just happy to be here. I am from the Rio Grande Valley. We don't have any mountains nor valleys, but we're in the Texas-Mexico border. And I actually live in a city called Edinburgh, Texas. So I can drive 30 minutes south and already be in Mexico. And so I am bicultural. So I am American, but I also have Mexican roots. So I take pride in where I live and just also I'm able to transition from here, the US, and then also function well in Mexico too. But of course, with that comes a very unique population that I work with, because a lot of them are Hispanic, Mexican American, or Mexican. And also language is important. So I may be providing counseling also in Spanish. So it also requires me to be fluent in both language and then also just the multicultural experience. I definitely believe when you live in the border, it has a very unique experience to the whole United States. And then of course, right now it's a hot topic, our border. You see it in and it's a hot topic for everyone. So definitely it's a very unique time as well to be providing counseling to our community.
And I just can't fathom and imagine just how complex, some of your counseling encounters might be, and all the different dynamics that you're trying to hold in a container, connected with a sense of understanding greater God and also understanding what care means and dealing and navigating around trauma and fear and anxiety and all the other things that might be coming into play. And so I'm so thankful I got a chance to talk to you, because I think you bring such a rich experience that not many get a chance to hear and not many get a chance to kind of understand the complexities around. I want to start by asking you kind of the question that I ask everyone, which is, how do you see the intersection of theology and therapy kind of intersect or diverge kind of in your roles?
Yeah. So I definitely believe that both therapy and theology are seeking to create an understanding of the human being in both heart in mind as well. They also pay close attention between the alignment of what do we believe, what is it that bring meaning to our life, and then also how does that reflect in what we do. So both theology and therapy are providing that space to explore values, identity, and purpose. I think in a place where they may diverse is that I believe that that diversion comes from the framework that each of them uses. So you have in one hand theology that is rooted in the understanding of the divine, right? right? And the source of the divine, which would be God, and how that reflects our existence in the world. So God is our spiritual leader, and we are to show that to the world. So there's that framework there. And then we're constantly called to act upon that alignment. Like, what is it that God wants for me? How can I live out that in my own life? And then therapy not necessarily considers that unless it's an important component of the client. So in essence, the client sets the parameters or the lens in which they want to be seen or treated. Generally, therapy relies on the psychological theories, helping clients cope through challenges, navigating relationships, also helping them explore tools and explore what a good life may look like for them within our own expertise of what healthy behavior would look like. So there's two different frameworks, the spiritual framework and the theology component. And then, of course, where they diverse would be in the pretty much psychological framework that we're guided through as therapists.
And what I find is for those clients who really are connected to some sense of purpose and sense of meaning or kind of spiritual groundedness, that they intersect when it comes to how I cope and how I handle the world, right? How do I navigate through life and understand it and use it as my source of meaning making that makes the biggest difference? That's usually the bridge that I find that many people come to me and speak of. Does that happen also in your world?
Yes. And actually, I was just thinking about that today, that especially if a person has a like spiritual framework that is coming in and that's important and vital to their life, if they don't leverage that in the way that they live out their life, their progress is much slower and they have higher difficulty to navigate situations. But once they break through and rely on their spiritual framework, they're more than likely to experience change a lot quicker than
Right.
a regular person. So I think definitely that's an intricate part of seeing change and transformation in a person's life.
How did you get into, just this intersection? I'll say there are very few folks who kind of live where we live, right? In this kind of have had some theological training and have had counseling training. How did you just get drawn to this kind of intersection?
Yes. So for me, specifically, my training comes from just my own spiritual faith. And then, of course, attending conferences, reading specifically like books that may be
Mm-hmm.
associated with therapy, suffering as well, with like the divine purpose of struggle and surrender and things like that. But it's definitely drawn from my own personal experience as far as what may work or what integration may bring. So I'm not necessarily like formally trained per se, like going to a seminary. I've never gone to a seminary, but of course I definitely have experience in trainings and readings, and that's where I draw a lot of my experience. And then of course, as I'm helping people, whether it's very conscious or not, I think I derive from that framework too, because I know that that's where change and transformation occurs. So definitely
Right.
has been from my own personal experience and seeing that importance. And I think in every counselor, you develop your own sense of identity of what it looks
Mm-hmm.
like to be a counselor, and then your own personal philosophy. And then you showcase that to like Psychology Today profile. People are able to see like what's important to you, what religion you practice, like how you're incorporating your faith into it. And then you have to be very like outspoken, like Christian counseling is provided or spirituality is important. So then people begin to seek you in that way, and that's all the whole point of that initial intake, of making sure that you're a good fit also for the client, and we both feel we're a good fit, because definitely philosophy and experience matters.
It does. And I think that's what led us to the topic for today, right? The topic for today is finding purpose and meaning. I could talk about purpose for days and hours. I have always had this drive and desire, to understand purpose and how purpose manifests in life and how that motivates people to kind of operate through life. And so it's a topic that I'm always excited about, is to talk about purpose and meaning. I'm curious, what drew that out as a passion for you?
So we're always being asked these big questions. And I remember one of the very common questions that were asked at a very young age is like, what do you want to become when you grow up? Or who is it that you want to be? So I remember hearing those questions and thinking it sounds it's like a simple question, but yet it's so difficult to respond to. And as I was encountering those questions early on, like growing up, I did feel a lot of pressure to jump to a response, and just based on maybe pleasing others or influences or what people thought I was going to be good at or how I saw myself in the world, and with very little knowledge of reflection and pause and thinking about that. So it always brought some sense of uneasiness, confusion, like feeling lost. But through reflection and encountering God, given that spirituality is important to me, around high school time, I started to see that I needed to think deeper about it, because in my bloom, and in my bloom, I mean pretty much my actions that I was taking collectively, they were all great. Like I was succeeding, great student, good person, right? But not necessarily having a sense of purpose for what that meant or what was driving me. And I think at that point was just like work ethic. And I thought I could hold on to that as long as I could. But not necessarily having a true essence of what was driving me. And unfortunately, when we don't know our why, then our what doesn't have meaning. So it's about bringing and understanding what is our why, how does that bring our what meaning, and how is that reflected in how we do things. So definitely building in that synergy began to be something that I was very interested in through my time.
When I think of my own kind of development of the concept of purpose, I think it wasn't until my late 20s until I actually started even thinking about a concept of a purpose. I think, I'm a church kid. I grew up Baptist, I might have been on the usher board and the choir and all the things, right? But not really necessarily developed kind of a spiritual relationship. And so after I, got out in the world, career, that kind of thing, and reconnected to my faith in my late 20s, I was like, okay, God, I'm in church, I'm doing the thing. What's my purpose? The classic question, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And so I'm just going on an infantile, God, kind of what is my purpose? And at the time, keep in mind, I was mentoring every kid that I could find. Like I was a big brother, big sister. I was just mentoring random people's kids that I would find wherever. I kept like sports gear in my trunk in case I ran into some kids and we had to talk and we had to do some things, just to kind of build relationship. And I was sporadically just, trying to figure out, what am I here for? Like, what am I doing? I know I'm good at things. I have talents. I have gifts. I can give, service, those types of things. But a lot of it was a question of, what is this for? Like, what am I here to do? Long story short, talking to someone, light bulb comes on. They're like, have you ever thought about like youth ministry? Brilliant idea. And that set me on a trajectory of like 25 years of kind of serving in youth ministry. But what I also developed and understood over time is that I can have more than one purpose. I think at that time, I was so captured in my thinking that I thought purpose had to exist in one framework. And I think over time and realized, I can be called to different spaces and different things and different seasons and different spaces and different environments. And so for me, purpose takes on a different meaning once I think you can connect to the fact that you have a sense of purpose.
Yes. And I love that dynamic component that you're mentioning with regards to being able to have a lot of interest. A lot of the times we may feel like purpose is fixed and not flexible, but definitely is part of developing almost like a sense of mission, and then seeing what roles actually connect to each mission, to that mission that you may have. It's the same mission, but it's the extension of it is in different roles. So I like that component that you're mentioning about just dynamic.
And I do. I think that so many people feel like they're walking through life and they don't have a sense of purpose, right? They don't have a sense of direction. They are really good at doing things, but they are struggling to tap into something that feels purposeful, meaningful in their life. And I guess that's why our guiding question today is, how do you go about identifying your purpose and helping to optimize your life with it? And that's a big question. We won't be able to cover everything connected to that today, but it is a kind of a question to set our thought pattern for today. So many people are often asking me like, I'm just going through it. That's all I'm doing. It's routine. Life is so boring. Life is so meaningless. I don't have a sense of what I'm doing here. And I think that's a common question that we all have searched for at some point in our life.
Yeah. So, of course, definitely purpose creates a life worth living. And I think we live in a time where people are trying to find out like why am I even in existence? Why is life just happening to me? And not living an engaged and integrated life with their own hobbies or interests, but even with people. There's a lot of people that are living in isolation. So I definitely believe that purpose helps create harmony and that inner peace where you're considering all aspects of life that are you consider important. But I definitely believe that purpose starts with your values. So for example, if spirituality helps inform those values, is to having some values clarification time in identifying what are my, let's say, top 5 values. Is it peace, justice, freedom? And then what are those circles of influence? Maybe it's friends, family, society, and how does all of those inform my values? And then once you are able to identify your values and really thinking about maybe what are some goals that I can create, because a lot of the times people wonder, why don't I achieve goals, or why don't I follow through with goals? And the essence and the foundation of developing effective goals that will lead to performance is in developing goals that are informed by your values. And a lot of the times when we are not developing those values in connection to our goals, we live a life of frustration and we live stressed out, and it creates this internal chaos in our lives because we're not living in alignment with what brings meaning to our life or what we care about. So definitely aligning our life with what we value so that we live a life that is more harmonious and we experience less stress in the way that we make decisions in life, but we're living a life that is more authentic to what is we find important in our life. And we know that when we know our why, our what has more value, and then also it can bear almost any how. And that's a quote. And it can bear almost any how. And in the how may be those challenges that come into play when living out life. And in that, there's an embedded resilience that comes in because we know why we're doing things and what is it that we're doing and how are we doing things. So I think those 3 things, like building an understanding of your why, your what, your how, with the baseline of your values, can really help with identifying a sense of purpose in your life.
And I love how you pull the internal, the external, and kind of the environmental factors that feed into you understanding purpose and setting goals with that purpose, right? Because just to say I have an awareness now of what I feel drawn to do, then now what are you going to do with what you feel drawn to do, right? How does that operationalize in the world?
Yeah, a sense of ownership, right? Because that's one question that people can give you. I can't go up to you and say, Dr. Catrice, like, what's my purpose? Like, that's not a question that you can answer for me. It's going to take me. So it definitely gives us a sense of ownership and also accountability for what we say or what we think is our purpose in our life. So I think that's definitely a very vital component of that inner exploration.
And I think it ties into our own identity, right? Our own identity, our sense of how we shape life through life transitions. Because once I have created and understand a sense of purpose, now that's going to shape and form how I see myself, how I see who I am in the world, how I see who I am to other people in the world, right? And so that's going to continue to shape and shift me understanding myself better and me understanding kind of my sense of direction and vision and activity in the world.
Yes. So definitely our identity evolves over time and evolves throughout those life transitions. And Erikson, who was a German psychologist for psychosocial development, he proposed 8 different stages stages of development while keeping life transitions in mind. So some of those 8 involve like infancy, adolescence, young adulthood, into reaching your prime adulthood time. So he definitely proposed that during adolescence, which is about 12 to 18 years of age, you start tampering with the question of who am I? So identity and identity confusion. And in part, he says, because at that point, you're also developing some level of consciousness of specific milestones that as a person should develop. Like, for example, like making sense of who you are in a group setting, or trying to identify what you like or not like, as trying to build an understanding of what your interests are, or what role do you play as well. So our identity is not fixed. It definitely evolves through life experiences and transitions in life. And those questions definitely start germinating around adolescence. But we know that challenges help shape sometimes our perspective, how we bounce back also from that. So, I mean, our life transitions are highly dynamic, complex, and a lot of what we're learning, and hopefully we are taking on as learning, can shape the way that we think and also move forward in life.
I think it also, it helps us understand a little bit more of the complexity of it, right? And that the fact that our identity is dynamic at times, because there are new awarenesses coming into view that perhaps we didn't recognize about ourselves. I'm curious, why does identifying purpose really matter in the first place to you?
Yeah. So a lot of the times we may say or think that goals are most important. And finding purpose is more than creating a goal for your life. So as I mentioned, effective goals are derived from what we value, and what we value should be what brings meaning and purpose in our life. There's actually a Japanese concept called ikigai, which means a reason for being or purpose in life. And this concept walks you through, what do you love? What brings fulfillment to your life? What is it that the world needs? What can you get paid for as part of your profession? So it definitely walks you through specific ingredients that helps you find a sense of purpose. And what this does is helps create a clear understanding of who you are, what you like, and how does that connect to the world around you. So purpose is definitely seeing yourself as something bigger than just yourself, and finding that purpose that connects you to the world, not just like for my next goal of losing weight, or to go and run a mile, and that's just my fitness goal, but it's thinking about our broader purpose of existence. And I think it connects us to a better version of ourself, or best possible self, but then also considering the component of, who am I in this world, and how can I contribute to the world in a way that I am contributing in something bigger than I thought I could consider in my life.
I often think of purpose as something that might be felt internally but operationalized externally, right? It is, how is what's happening in who I am going to affect those around me and the spaces that I'm in. I think it emanates from us, but I think it's seen and actualized around other people. My sense of purpose, because if I identify that a part of my purpose in the life is to bring sunshine, I mean, that's kind of vague, but if that is that how I understand my purpose in life, then when I'm in spaces, then that is how I interact in those spaces. Sometimes purpose has meaning that it's going to contribute to the community. It's going to contribute to others' lives. It's going to in some way enhance humanity. And so not only do I have a sense of trying to understand it within myself, but understanding kind of what is my role to make sure that I give that to the world the way it should be.
Yes, impact is important. And you can be part of that impact by identifying what role you want to play in this world and what you would like to bring into this world.
And it also affects your decision making sometimes. Hopefully it influences your decision making, because once you have identified a sense of purpose, it will inform not only the decisions you make for yourself, but the decisions you make about how to interact with others.
Yes, so it definitely brings some synergy into your life by living life authentically to your values and allowing your values to carry forward your decisions in your life. And it's kind of like choreography. Like if you vibe with the song and recognize the song, if you feel like you have the moves for it, right, you're more than likely to enjoy it and then also feel confident in it. So it's about thinking, what choreography do I want to consider that is part of what is important in my life that would help create some level of clarity, so that as I'm living out life, I'm living out decisions that fully conscious of what I want, and then also helps prioritize what I think matters. So living a life that matters, and putting into place living life as intentionally as I can. And so that you're not left wondering, am I really living a life worth living? Am I living a life where other people may say, I want to live your life? And if people see you and they're saying, that's a life that I wish I didn't have, then there's something wrong and there's something to explore. But hopefully our life is also a testimony to others that, hey, there's something going on with this person. And I think I want to learn more about what they've done to live life in fulfillment and that brings joy, rather than feel like I want to distance myself from this person because there's something wrong there.
Something's keeping me at bay.
Yeah.
Right. Does this kind of lead into the design thinking that you mentioned earlier, the concept of design thinking?
Yeah. So the concept of design thinking is actually something that was developed through Stanford University. And it's all about helping you be an engineer of your own life. So they definitely walk you through questions in identifying like what's a challenge in your life that you currently have. What tools do you currently possess? What resources do you think you need to find? So it's definitely helping you, put you in a position of power, because a lot of the times these types of questions may put you in a very vulnerable spot where you feel like I don't have all the answers. So design thinking is a way to emphasize that you can be an engineer to those questions, and it may just take a little bit more thinking to be able to come up with a solution or the next step. So it's all about like thinking through what is it that you want to accomplish through a series of questions to help guide you through.
And I think it relies on something that I often emphasize, which is intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Being very intentional in choosing to look at those things and to try to ask the hard questions so that you can understand that better.
Yes.
This has been awesome. This has been a wonderful conversation so far about purpose and meaning. I'm wondering, are there any other topics or passions that you're kind of drawn into?
Yes. So about 4 years ago, I became an aunt. So I have 4 nieces and nephews, which I'm completely sold out for. And because of that, I started seeing how big emotions play a role in small bodies and how that may affect those little people. And so one of the things that I have been thinking for a while now is that I want to write a short children's book. Specifically, one, garnering some of my roots like folklorico dancing, because that's something that I did when I was little, and it's very common in the Mexican heritage. So I want to connect like the folklorico storyline with helping kids regulate an emotion. And we'll start with one. So regulate an emotion and kind of create this way of helping kids connect with their roots while considering how they can gain some level of control about their emotions in such a young age. So that's one of the things that has been on my list, at least for the last 2 years. And I really want to complete it. And I think now with more experience with my nieces and nephews in my interactions, I feel like I have a little bit more insight into the children's brain that way.
Well, I think we definitely could benefit from some more emotionally intelligent children.
Yeah.
Who are in tune with understanding and recognizing not only that they have emotions, but when they have big emotions, how to articulate them, how to cope with them, how to navigate them. I think that'll be awesome. And that's going to be a whole series, right? Because we've got a whole range of emotions to go through.
That would be awesome.
So we'll check back for the series on that. Is there anything else that you've been working on recently that's exciting, or anything you want to let the audience know so that they can know more about you?
Yeah, well, of course, the other part is that these are conversations that I have with my first year students in college. So I do teach here at EUT-RGV, which is our local university in the area. And part of what we do in our course is helping students find what they're interested in, and so that translates into their profession. So I enjoy having these types of conversations with students, and a lot of what I've said today are conversations that I have with them and activities that they engage in. So it's always a cool thing to tackle and connect with students at this early stage in their life, so that they're not 40 and wondering what happened with my life, right? But they're living life intentionally early on.
Right. I mean, we have so many connection points. You know, we both have Baptist heritage. We both have done college counseling. You longer than I. And so hats off to you. Continue the great work.
Thank you.
But I do think it's all in the effort of just trying to care for others, right? I do think we are called in many ways to be unique in different spaces. And so I'm thankful that you are unique in the space that you've been planted in.
Thank you.
Tell the folks how they can find you if they want to know more or have an opportunity to invite you in to talk about the things that we shared.
Yeah. So first, Psychology Today, which is kind of this nationwide directory. You can find me with my name, Erika Perez, and then city, Edinburgh, Texas. So you can definitely learn more about me through that profile. And then, of course, I do have a website that is called clearpathscounseling.com. So that's another way. And then, of course, through email at counseling@clearpathscounseling.com could be another way that people can connect with me.
Well, thank you so much, Sunshine, for being here today. I appreciate it. I miss you. Hopefully, I'll see you soon at an event coming up. Take care of yourself. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. For those of you who have tuned in, we thank you for staying to the end. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on all of our platforms. We are on all social media platforms as well as YouTube and across all podcast platforms. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care of yourself and be well.
Theo Therapist Podcast, real talk at the intersection of theology and therapy. Check out Dr. Glenn's new journal series titled Brain Dump Journals for the Busy, available on Amazon. Visit our websites for more information at thetheotherapist.com or catriceglenn.com.